Welcome to this tutorial on control flow in Python as needed for CBSE board exam. This part of the syllabus is primarily taken from class 11 syllabus, but this might be tested in your board exam in one or the other way. Control flow allows us to dictate the execution path of our code. It helps us make decisions and repeat actions based on conditions. We will cover conditional statements like if else and loops such as for and while, which are fundamental to writing efficient programs. Conditional statements let us make decisions in our programs. For instance, we can check if a number is even or odd. The if keyword introduces a condition and the else block runs when the condition is not met. We can also use else if to check multiple conditions. So let us have a closer look at complete if else syntax. So say you have some condition, say for example, whether x is greater than 5, right? So if that condition is true, you take and do some action, right? If that condition is not true and you want to take alternate action, you will use else part. And if you are having scenarios where you might need several if like statement, so you can structure them with else if. So it could be if condition 1, then actually take appropriate action. Else if condition 2, then take alternate, and this else if can be repeated without any restriction. So there could be one or more repetition of else if as per the requirement of the problem that you are trying to solve. And eventually you could have an else block that will take all the other scenarios, if that is how you want your problem to be solved. With this brief introduction of if else, let us quickly write a code to find out whether a number is even or odd. So you can start with some number, right? Say number is 5, right? And if you want to test if, so when it will be even? When you divide it by 2 and your remainder is 0. So your condition becomes, you can write your condition both with or without a square bracket. So if number and remainder 2, right, is equal to 0, right? So this is the condition when you can say that number is prime, right? Sorry, number is even. Now else part you can write it in two ways. You can either say, because if number is not even, it will be odd, So either you can directly say as print number is odd, or we look at variation of it. So let's execute it first, right? So since you are testing with n is equal to 5, result is number is odd. You may see it printed here in this part, right? So in Juniper notebook, your numbers will be printed below the block where you are executing your code. So let me again try it out. Here. Okay, let us remove it. You can test with say some even number, right? And you can see, right, that your number is even. Now what we are saying here is, rather than writing, you can even write another condition like, right? And here what will be your condition? That your number percent 2 is not equal to 0, right? So even in this case you'll get correct output. However, since both the conditions were kind of exhaustive, it will be preferable that you cover it with appropriate syntax of if else or block of else if. Now you might be aware of flowchart, right? And control flow implementation either around your if else statement or your looping from real world scenarios. They could be actually depicted as a basically uh, that they can be depicted using this flowchart. So you'll be having some starting point, and here the uh, decision boxes, right? So you are having actually some rectangle like a structure where you'll be having inputs, and then you have decision boxes, right? So for example, you are entering number 1 and number 2, and then you have a decision whether so this flowchart is, say, when you want to kind of write a program to determine positive differences between two numbers, right? So how you'll take difference between two numbers? You will actually subtract one number from the others. But if you subtract them without any check, the result could be negative. The ask here is more like, say, returning the absolute difference of two numbers, right? So how you can do it here? As you know, absolute number will be positive, which means that in either case you have to subtract the smaller number from the bigger number. So this flowchart depicts the scenario where you have a start point, you get the number 1 and 2, and then you have a condition, check for it, right? Whether number 1 is greater than number 2. You know that yes, if number 1 is greater than number 2, then your diff will come from by subtracting number 2 from number 1, right? So basically for this part of the code, we are focusing on here, right? So since actually in this particular case, as long as your number 1 is greater than number 2, you'll get diff like this, then you print and you stop. Now if your number 1 is not greater than number 2, so then you come to the no part of the code block, right? So this block, and here in this block what you have to do, you have to subtract a smaller number from bigger number. And what is the smaller number here when number 1 is not greater than number 2? Number 1, right? That's great. So based on your understanding of if else statement, let us quickly try and code this program. right? So what you are going to have? You are going to have number 1. Hopefully by now you'll be aware that there is a keyword called input, right? Where you can prompt user to enter number, right? So enter first number, right? And then you can actually have a similar prompt for asking user to enter the second number, right? So you can say enter uh, second number, right? Now when you are reading it from your console, it might be read as string or some other type. So you can actually apply explicit type needed for your use case. And here, what you might be noticing is, since we are talking about general numbers, so float could be a good specific explicit task. So you not only take the input from users, you also subtract, you also actually explicitly convert it into a specific format that you need. Now let us convert what we have done. We have got our starting point, then we have got the input number 1 and number 2, and now let us say we are going to codify this part, right? Is number 1 greater than number 2, and then follow one of the specific uh, scenarios, right, that is needed for you. So how you can codify it? If, right, number 1 is greater than number 2, right, then you put a semicolon and then you write what you want to do here. So let us also do one thing. Let us say that we initialize diff to 0, right, or say 0.0. So here in this case, your diff is going to come from B. You subtract the a smaller number from bigger number, and a smaller number here is 2, right? Now else if, right, and what is that condition? Number or here you can simply say if a number is not greater than, it will either be equal to or less than, so the no part of it, right? So here you write your diff as number 2 and then subtract number 1 from here, right? And finally you can end it by printing the difference between two numbers, right, is okay. And you can actually now by this point in time you'll be aware of this, right? And then you can put syntax for if, okay. So let us execute it. Now you can press shift and enter. It is asking for number 1, say you enter 22. It is asking for second number, say you enter 35. So it's should subtract 35 from 22, right? And that's why it is coming as 23.00. If you want to again execute it and enter say 45 and 23, it will be subtracting 23 from 45. Okay. Okay. Now, range is another uh, control flow variant, which is actually sort of needed when you are writing your loops, right? So the range, uh, this is a function that generates a sequence of numbers, right, which is useful for iterating in loops. So it can take up to 3 arguments, as you can see on your screen: start, stop, and step value, right? So uh, by default, you just need to provide one number, and in that case it will assume that it will start from 0 and go for go up to that number with default increment. But if you don't want that, you can actually have a step function. So let us actually look at some of the examples, right? So let's think through. So what will happen in this particular case? If you are using range from 1 to 6, it will print them incrementally, right? Starting at this and stepping up by 1, right? So it will go till 5, right? Now if you change it, right, just provide that up to 6, what it will print? Now it will start at 0 and go till 5, right? uh, Now if you wanted to kind of say print, all the odd numbers, so you can start with 2, or you can start with you know uh, 0 and keep a step function of 2, right? So it is 0 to 4. If you want to print all the odd numbers between up to 6, right? So you can start at 1 and then print every alternate number. So you have 1, 3, 5. It's very important for you to play around this, because range will be used exclusively and it is also tested in your exam. So when you will be writing some of your case study based question, 5 marks or 4 marks, there will definitely be some one or the other variation of the control flow, and you might have to set up a loop. And many a time to set up that loop, you need to be very well aware of this syntax, right? For range. So do experiment, open your notebook or Python console and type a variation of, range, right? Okay. Um, Let us move to our first, so if you look at for loops, right? So this is the uh, first loop that we are introducing in our control flow introduction. For loops, these are used to iterate over sequences. Like you have seen, right? We just saw about ranges, and in addition to range, around list and strings. So we can print each character in the word Python using a for loop. How? Uh, Before we actually, so if you look at the syntax, right? So for control variable in sequence or items in range, you have a statement of your body of the loop. So there could be more than one. So this is how you start for character in Python, right? Print character, right? So it will print each of these characters one by one. Okay. While loop is again similar to for loop with a little difference. So you'll be having a test condition, and as long as that test condition is true, the body of while loop will be executed. So if you see here, right, there is a starting point, your initialization statement, then test expression, right? So now here is the place where your for while loop uh, is condition is true or not will be tested. If it is true, it will execute the body of while loop, right? And then follow this path, right? If it is false, it will actually go into this part and kind of it will stop after executing the statement uh, following the while loop body. Okay. So say if you are trying to print, all the numbers from 1 to 5, right? So we are initializing our count at 1, and then we are writing out test condition, right? Let us actually write it say that here we want to print numbers, uh, or say we want to print odd numbers, right, up to 10. Okay, so where will start? We'll start with uh, say the first number, right? Then we write our while statement, and we'll say that while this number is less than equal to 10, right? How you'll test for odd? If number and then remainder of these with 2 is not equal to 0, right? What you can do? Print number, and then irrespective of, right, whether this is an even or odd number, you uh, you actually increment it by 1. So this is very important. Unless you have actually something that modifies, right, it will never actually, your while loop will never end, right? And then you can print done with the while, right? Let's execute. So it is printing 13579, right? And then it is printing done with the while. So this important, right? Number plus equal to 1 is important, because the part of your body of the while loop, you need to actually take care of appropriately updating the test condition. So far we started with what control flow, uh, why we use control flow, right? What's their purpose? Then we introduce very simple if else and else if variation. We tried coding out and simple even odd number, and then we looked at a more complex, where we wanted to print the absolute value. We used a flow chart and then tried coding it out. It is always a good practice for you uh, to try and draw at least few steps of your problem statement, and then try and codify it. Then we introduce range, and the syntax of it is the keyword range followed by start, at for what to start, at a stop, where to stop, and then a step. By default, either of these. So if you don't have a start and a step, it will actually assume increment by 1, and a start will happen at 0, and so from 0 till a stop condition, it will increment by 1. Okay. Then we introduce for loop, where you don't have to explicitly, you just check for and then control variable, and then you have something about the sequence or iterators, right? And then you actually have your body part of it. In case of loop, the only difference is you have to explicitly update uh, the variable or the test condition, test variable that is being checked. Otherwise, it will get into an infinite loop. One simple way of writing infinite loop is where you don't modify the test variable. Now, using that in mind, Python allows nested loops. What does that mean? Inside a loop, you can have any number of other loops, right? So, for example, what we are saying, and there is actually no restriction. Any loop construct could be inside any loop construct. So, while could be under for could be under while, vice versa, and everything possible. So you have a simple, for loop from that actually takes numbers from 1 up to 4, and then print its, you know, uh, values, right, in a coordinate fashion. So let's see what it is. So it's all the coordinate from 1 to 3, right? So 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 3. Now, if you want to modify, right, say this part, right? So if you want to say write while, right, j, right, so as you know what we have to do, j is equal to 1, and while uh, j is less than 4, right? So you'll be printing it and then doing j plus is equal to 1, right? So this is the only difference, right? So for loop can be written in one line. For while loop, you have to have an initialization as well as updating it explicitly. To another important, so when we are actually going through the loops, right? Many a time you don't want to execute, right? Um, everything. So for example, say in this particular case, right, if you wanted to print only upper half of the coordinates, for example 1 1 1 2 1 3, and then 2 2 2 3, and then 3 3, right? Let us see how you could do. So in this particular case, you start your uh, j, right? uh, so let us actually try um, from for the lower half, right? And what you do while j is less than, right? uh, okay, well, we'll actually modify it, just give us a second, right? So let us look at the structure of the break statement, right? uh, so you'll be having a loop condition, and when that loop condition is true, the loop element will continue uh, during the execution, right? If a break statement is encountered, right? So this part, so if you have a break statement here, and if that break statement is true, right? So then what you do, you'll go for a statement following the loop, and if break statement is false, then it will go for again the similar body, right? So just to kind of make it clear again, on within the loop, right, you'll be actually checking for a break statement, right? So if the condition for break statement, right, somehow is encountered, then it will actually be executing from a statement following the loop. It means loop will be broken. Otherwise, if that is not the case, then it will again continue like there was no break. Okay. So say that you want to print, right, all the numbers from uh, up to 10, right? But then you don't want to say print number beyond it, right? So we can actually write it together. So say if your number is 10, right, then for I in range 1 to 10, right, if I is equal to 8, right, then what we are saying, we want to break from here, right? Else we want to simply print, right? And see what will happen here once your break statement is there, right? Post uh, break. So it will print all the number till 7, and then actually once it encounters this, it will actually be continue is another scenario where it skips. So in while you are part of the loop, right, break is a way of kind of immaturely or before the execution of the loop is complete, right, it can terminate based on some condition. Continue is actually when you encounter certain condition, when for that particular iteration you want to skip rest of the body. So in your actually loop of the body, right, you can have an continuous statement based on some condition, and if continue is encountered, then it will not execute rest of the loop statements. It will continue from there. That's the only thing. So say, a very simple example, if you want to print, we'll actually make it little more complicated. So say if you want to print all the numbers, right, from 0 till 10, so print values or print uh, prime values, right, from 2 to 10 except 3. So what will be the prime here? 2, 3, 5, 7, right? Uh, and how you will test for prime? Okay, let us actually keep it simple, right? Let us go for odd numbers, right? So print all the uh, odd values. We'll first have a program for prime and then we can, right? From 2 to 10, except, okay. So for I in range, right? What we are having? 2, okay? So we want to start at 2, go till 10 in an increment of 1, right? Now what we want to say, if I percent 2, right, is not equal to 0, right? So then we know that our number was odd. And if our number was odd, we'll check that if I is equal to 3, then we'll have our continuous. So what will happen? It will not break, but it will actually go for the next iteration, right? As we'll actually print that value, right? So the number is, right, and then you can print end of, okay. So here, if you see 1, 5, 7, 9 and no 3, right? So what is happening when I is equal to 3, rather than continuing with the rest of this part, right, it is simply going for the next iteration, right? That's why after 1 what you have is 5, and then you can check it for any number. So if you want to actually, rather than doing 3, if you want to 5, you have to have this condition here, right? Okay. So now we have everything. We have introduced if else. For some of you who have used other language, there are then also, so that you know there in Python. It is only if else if and else. Then we talked about range. Very important to keep yourself aware of that syntax. Then we talked about loop, two variations, for and while. We took some very simple coding exercises based on that, and then we introduced two important break and continue. Break when you don't want, when that condition, when a specific condition inside the loop is met, from where you don't want to continue. That's the scenario when you use break. And the case where you just want to skip rest of the body for this particular iteration, you use continue. Now let us actually take some problem statement, right? So say if you want to print a star pattern, right? So you can see it. What is the star pattern? You are having actually, your 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star. So basically this is going up to level 5, and every time it is increasing by 1. Now what you can do here is maybe you can um, pause your video, right, uh, before we actually uh, see the solution or we code out the solution, and you can try it yourself. It is important because in your past year question paper many a time variation of this has been tested, right? And in simple interview setup, uh, at least at your level, that is 10 plus 2, this kind of questions might be asked. So just think through it. You can pause your video here, try and actually take a few minutes and then come back. uh, okay. So how to code it, what is happening here, right? So if you see the star pattern that we are having, right, we are having 5 rows, so we'll have some variable that can store that information for us. And every time from what is happening is we are actually printing one more star, right? So in first row 1, in second row 2, and like that. So you know that you can actually form it using appropriate construct like range. So let us see how we can code it out. uh, so uh, so say your number of row is 5, right? And then for I in range 1 till, so from where here what we want to do, we want to go, uh, so let us see first what we are printing here, right? That's how you can test. So you will be having 1 2 3 4 5, right? And then what you want to print here, you want to print a star, right? And as you know, there is a construct in Python where you can multiply it by n number of times, right? So as long as your I is computed properly, right, you can use into I, right? So right, so what you did, 1 2 3 4 5, and how you did, just by manipulating the variable I, right? In a similar way, if you want to do with not star but digit, think about it, how you do it. Again, you can pause your video, think about it. The only thing that you have to see is, rather than a star, now you are having numbers, right? And what you need to do, you need to print in increasing order, right, all the number, right, in that row. So for first row, you know uh, how many, for 1 till rows plus 1, that's what that represents, right? And then what you do, uh, for each of these, right, the moment you have determined which row you are processing, you have another loop that goes from 1 till that number of the nth row that you are processing, right? And eventually uh, you can actually print the final one, right, uh, as that particular digit separated by some appropriate uh, underlines, right? So maybe you can take a pause here, try and code it out, right? Okay. So hope you have reviewed, tried coding it out yourself. Again, here what we are having, we have a same variable, a row, which is 5. Then what we are having, in each row, right, we have to determine how many digits you want to print, right? So how many digits, from 1 till your so row plus 1, right? Similar to digit, right? So you can print I and see what is happening here, right? So first row, second row, third row, fourth row, fifth row. That's what you are having, right? And then here what we have to do is inside this for loop, we have to print, right, digit. How many digit? From 1 till your j plus 1, right? Right. And what you will do here, you print similar to what you are doing. So you print your uh, j, right? And then what you are going to use here, uh, you are going to use some separators, right? So you'll see that actually you can give a space out here, and once your for loop done, you can simply have a print statement, empty print statement, right, to break these lines. Wait, we made a mistake here. Okay, so we wanted to end with white space, right, and then a new line at the end of every print, right? So what mistake we are doing? Sometime we misplace I with j, right? So we have corrected that. Now we have seen two, right? A star and digit, right? Now say that you want to print diamond pattern. What is diamond pattern? If you see, say if you are actually going to print 5 of each, right? So it is increasing till 5. So 4 and 5th, and after that again it is a replica of it, right? Again, think about it. You have already tried based on star and based on digit. Think how you can actually print the diamond pattern, right? Hint here is think about your middle row, right? Look at this one, right? So if you see the upper part that you are having here, right, and the lower part that you are having here, right, they are exact replica of each other. Okay. So this part and this part, right? So you are having actually kind of more like inverted image, right? So again, you can pause your video here, right, and think about it, and then we'll actually talk about the solution. Okay. Uh, so hope you have reviewed it and tried solving it again, right? So here you are having 5 rows, right? These rows are uh, first increasing single star, double star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star. So that's the increasing part of the diamond, and then anyway middle one is shared, and the next one is again 4, 3, 2, 1 in middle. So let us explore how to create a diamond shape pattern using loops, right? As you just saw, this pattern consists of two main parts, an upper triangle and a lower inverted triangle. We will use nested loops for this task. One set of loops to handle the spaces and another to handle the stars, right? Why? Because if you see, uh, in some cases you are having higher number of spaces, so that your first star in the first row is middle, right? And then again, actually, you reduce the empty by one and increase the star by one, right? Now, about the size of these, right? Uh, this is what that is going to determine, right? Number of rows in bottom half minus one, right? Because since the middle row is anyway shared. Now, when you are thinking about printing the upper triangle, right? To form the upper triangle, we can use a loop that runs from 1 to n, and this loop controls the number of rows. For each row, we first print spaces. The number of spaces decreases as we go down, starting from n minus 1 and reducing with each iteration, right? So you got it clearly. When you are trying to print the first space, right, you'll actually do how many? N minus 1, because nth one is going to be your star. And after the space, you print a star followed by a space, and count of stars increases with each row, right? So these are the three things that we have to keep in mind. So what you'll do for I in range 1 till your rows plus 1, right? We are going to print a space into rows minus 1 time, right? And then a star into how many? So first row 2 into 1 minus 1, right? Second row 2 into 2 minus 1, right? So third row 2 into 3 minus 1, right? So we are actually going to have number of stars as a star into 2 into I minus 1, right? So again, you set up your loop, right, from 1 till number of rows plus 1, right, to print the upper half. And what you are going to print here, you are going to print a space into your n minus 1, and then for each iteration of I, you are going to print your star. How many of them? 2 into I minus 1, right? So this part of the code, right? This part of the code, right? So we have 1, 3, 5, 7. You might be seeing that, right? So how many rows? We are going to have 5, right? And for I in range 1 till row plus 1, right? As you know, you can again print your I, right? So what will be having? 1 till 5. And then what you want to print here? For each of these, you have an empty star. How many time? Your row minus 1 time, right? And then what you want to print? You want to print your stars, right? How many times? They are going to be print 2 into I minus 1. Why 2 into I minus 1? For first, 2 into 1 minus 1, 1. For second, 2 into 2 minus 1, 3, right? So 2n minus 1 is the pattern, right? Okay. we need to put this into parentheses, right? Okay. So uh, let us look at the lower part, right? The lower triangle. In the lower triangle, what we are doing, we create the inverted triangle below the middle one. So we use a loop that starts from n minus 1 because anyway your nth one is shared and decreases down to 1, right? So this loop controls the rows of the bottom half. So you start from n minus 1 and go till 1, right? So minus 1. Basically, you will stop at 0, right? So you start from both minus 1 and go till 0 with a decrease of 1. And then at every stage, what you are doing, now you again print your empty rows that many time, and then your stars 2i minus 1 time, right? So so now we want to start from where? Row minus 1, right? And go till 0 by at every step reducing by 1, right? And then what we want to print? We want to print your right. Okay, so again you can actually take a few minutes and think about it. What we were doing is first we went from first row till the middle layer, and then from there on we started from the next till last one, and at each of these stage we are printing row minus you know I number of empty space and 2 into I minus 1 number of stars. Control flow concepts are essential for building interactive programs, and this is taken from your NCERT textbook, right? So say if you want to build, right, a program to print in this, the same structure, right? We are having, couple of other variation where star pattern, then digit pattern, and then reverse of what we did in the earlier case, right? So you can have, so this is the place where we are having a while loop, right, where you can ask whether someone wants stars or digits or decreasing number of digits, right, and q for quit, and based on this choice we have taken the code from previous steps, right. So let us just execute it. If you print 1, right, you see the diamond pattern coming. If you print 2, you'll see the numbers pattern coming. For 3, you see the increasing one, and to quit. Okay, so you have actually done a good review of all this. Uh, for your practice, try and print Fibonacci triangle, generate pattern based on user input. For example, number of rows, shape type, right? Write a program to find digit of an integer number inputted by user. Write a function that checks whether a number is palindrome or not, right? What is palindrome? Palindrome is same when read the same from each end. So from 1, 2, 3. So if you have A, B, A, right? So A and A, and in between you are having B, right? So from both ends it always read the same. So this could be good, starting point. You can also look at your NCERT book and sort of print uh, other things, right? Okay. So we'll conclude this part of our control flow discussion for today. here itself. In the next video, we'll be covering string and some other inbuilt data structures like list and tuple one by one. Thank you. If you like the video, if you like the content, subscribe our channel, and looking forward to see you in our next video.